Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast with your host, Mike Knight, where we'll bring you great information about a vegan plant-based diet. It doesn't matter if you've been vegan for years, part-time vegan, or just gathering more information. This podcast is for you. Thanks again for joining, and let's get today's tour started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Vegan Tour Guide. I'm your host, Mike Knight, and I hope you're having a phenomenal day. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in. For all of you coming back, hey, welcome back. Really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for helping spread the message. I know I get that a lot. I get emails from people, and sometimes people just hit me up, on social media saying, look, so-and-so is an avid listener to your show, and they sent this over and referred me to you. So thank you so much for all of you helping spread the word and do that. And for you people, first-timers, hey, thanks so much for checking it out. Really appreciate it. Really hope you will find some great value here, because what my goal is for you is to give you knowledge and information about plant-based, plant-based living, plant-based vegan lifestyle, and bringing people on that share their stories, their journeys, their whys, and their hows. Because a lot of times that's what it is, especially if you're new or just gathering information, like I know a lot of my listeners are, that you want to know, look, can this work into my life? Because I am, quote, a single parent, or I'm, a busy executive person, or I'm an athlete. How does it tie in being an athlete? All these things that you may be, in your life, or that's like your lifestyle, if you will, and you want to know how it can be done. And so that's a lot of the goal of what I do on this show, is to bring in that information and knowledge. You hear people, you relate to them, and you're like, you know what? I get it. If they can do that, I can do that. Or what they're doing right there, that's a great nugget, if you will, that I'm going to take and I'm applying to my life. And so thank you so much for listening. You can always find past episodes over at vegantourguide.com. So go check that out. Also, sign up there. You'll see the drop-down box for the free newsletter. Again, it's free, no obligation. You get the newsletter. It's going to give you information also on the transition, ideas and steps that'll come to you actually, one letter a week for 4 weeks. So just go and sign up for it. Get that coming to you. Again, it's on me. Forward it on to your friends too, just so others can, take a look at that and apply some of that to their life. So, the purpose of this week in the show, it kind of brings up, sometimes in life we get those unique paradigms or instances we find ourselves in. My oldest son came home. He's in high school, and he came home the other week, and he is involved with debate, among other things. And he said, Dad, it's kind of a tough situation I was in because, I was asked to debate something, except the twist was I had to debate the side that I don't agree with or don't know much about. And it was a challenge. And, it's kind of unique sometimes in life. We find ourselves in those situations. Well, that brings us to today with Chef Wanda White. All right. Chef Wanda White is a phenomenal person. You're going to hear this in this interview with her. And what unique happened in her life, and a tipping point that led to a lot of changes and even to where she is now. And that is, she was down at the University of North Texas. And, she was, of course, there on the campus, running one of the dining halls. And she was approached by Ken Botts, who a lot of y'all have heard, was on a previous show. Great having him on. Ken is awesome. And Ken, is with the Humane Society, and he approached her and said, look, here's the deal. We're going to convert this dining hall to vegan, plant-based. Everything in this dining hall on this major college campus, we're turning it over to vegan, plant-based. Never been done before. First time ever. Okay? Well, here's the twist. Chef Wanda White, she was not plant-based vegan. That's not how she ate. She was, card-carrying meat eater, like so many people. And she was like, okay, how do I do this? However, you know what? She had an open mind, and you'll hear her telling the story. So I don't want to give too much away, but she dove right in, trying to find how she can make this, put all of her culinary experience that she's going to talk to you about. You're talking about someone, Culinary Institute of America, formal training in Paris. She is bringing it with her knowledge and experience. And so it is a great story, great message that she shares. Again, her whys and her hows, a lot of also tips, if you will, on food and cooking, which all y'all that have been following me on this podcast know I can't cook at all. I'm horrible. However, even the things she suggested, I'll give it a shot. I know I can do it. It's that simple. She breaks it down for us like that. So everybody sit back, get ready, and listen. I know you're really going to enjoy this. You're going to get a lot out of it. So now, let me welcome on Miss Chef Wanda White.
All right. I would like to welcome Chef Wanda White onto the Vegan Tour Guide podcast. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, no, thank you. I appreciate you and I being put in touch with each other through our mutual buddy, Ken Botts. He is awesome.
Yes, he is.
And I follow now via him and all of y'all that I'm getting to talk to, because you're there at Humane Society of the U.S., and so getting to follow along on Facebook as well. Y'all stay busy.
We do. We are moving and grooving, so we don't let any grass grow under our feet right now.
No, you don't. I mean, I tell you what, you almost have like the most frequent flyer miles, I think, of anybody. It's unbelievable to watch y'all. But thank you so much out of the gate for all that y'all do. And, I look forward to hearing, more about your journey and that for you, and just to kind of tell a little bit of people about your background and make sure I get everything right. I mean, you Culinary Institute of America, you even had training over in Paris. And then on top of that, you've just decided you've now trained over 2,000 other chefs around the world on plant-based.
Yeah, yes, Mike, that's correct. And, this has been a great journey for me. When I started this 6 years ago at the University of North Texas, I didn't know anything about being a vegan. I didn't really, be honest with you, I wasn't interested in it. All I had heard about vegan food was that it was nasty. And they were telling me that, we need this. We're going to open up this all vegan dining hall, and you're going to be over it, do all the recipe development and get the research and development on all the recipes and get it going. So, that was a daunting thing for me because I had no idea what I was getting into, and I didn't even know if I wanted to do that, but, it was my job.
Yeah.
And, the thing about it, though, as the journey has progressed, and I look back on that now, it's so amazing how life takes you through these little paths, and you think, well, and I even went home and told my husband, I said, I don't know that I can do that. I may be looking for a job in a couple of months because I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this work.
Yeah.
As I started, as I began doing research on it, and I tell people I've always set the bar very high for myself, and I want to be good at anything I do, and I want to be the best at it. And so this was no exception to the rule. And I believe that one thing, and I've said this, I'm a certified executive pastry chef, classically trained, to get that right out of the chute to tell you. And so I taught at the Art Institute of Dallas for 6 years, the baking program. And I would tell my students, knowledge is powerful. And if you want to be successful, you got to keep learning, and you got to keep knowledge in there and get some wisdom about what you're doing, and think about it as a journey and not just something that you're just here hanging out for the day.
Uh-huh.
And so when I began to do the research and development and get knowledgeable about it, what it meant to be a vegan, it was really and truly, it was like a light bulb. I was sitting at my desk, and Ken, that morning, it was the Monday, they told me on Friday, and that Monday he came and brought me a stack of books, and he said, here, read it and look at the recipes and get some ideas. And so I began to do that, and I got online and started researching. And, what I found out, it was just as simple, Mike, as just leaving the animal product out. The students were saying, we want a kitchen with healthier options. We want a kitchen that has vegan food and no animal products. And so they said, you know what? Okay, we'll do this. We don't have anything to lose. We're going to open this up and give them what they want. And then in a few months, it'll be done, and we'll say we did it, and that's it. And never I don't think in anybody's wildest dreams out there did they ever think that it was going to be as successful as it was. We went from closing that kitchen down, and I was there 3.5 years. And, When I left from there, we were serving 1,750 swipes a day. And so it was the smallest kitchen on campus. It was way down at the other end, away from all the academics. They had 2 other big kitchens that they could stop at and eat, but they chose to come down to the Mean Green all vegan dining hall, and it was very successful.
That is awesome. And I remember, when I had Ken on, he bragged about you and what y'all did there.
Yeah.
And, and I remember to even add to what you had just said, I remember one of the neatest numbers. You may know the number off your head, because I can't remember it right now, but I remember it was a big number that he said of the actual, I'm trying to think of the term, non-food plan people that started coming by. He said that's one of the biggest things that amazed y'all were the people that are, quote, the students, quote, spending their own money, not the, quote, meal card for mom and dad maybe coming in there. And he said that just was one thing that stuck out to y'all about, wow. I mean, we're really having people that are consciously really choosing to come here and eat because, it's not like they're just eating here maybe because it's close to their dorm and they got a meal plan for mom and dad, they're in a rush. That just, they kept consistently coming. And that was just, I remember that spoke volumes.
Yes, Mike, you're right. They did consistently keep coming. And not only were they coming, but we had professors. We had administration coming. There was people coming. We would have, Ken was very, very, he was a big advocate about what we were doing out there. And he was, he's into the social media, so he was always on there talking about Mean Greens. And we would have the vegan clubs come out, and people that didn't even eat vegan would come out and say, we heard, some of our friends came here to eat, and we heard about it. I had people coming, and that number that you're talking about was about 30%. It was up at 30%.
Wow.
Non-vegans. Actually, it was mostly like commuter meals that they sold, and it was up 30% and we saw that in that kitchen there. But when we did this and we had all that publicity, because we were the first all-vegan dining hall in the United States as far as we know and in the world. And when we did that, of course, ABC got into it. All of the Good Morning America talked about it. All of the big news stations, they had reported this story. So we had people coming from Canada. I had people coming from California. I remember one night I was getting ready to go home, and there was a lady called on the phone, and it was out in the front phone, and they came back and got me. I actually had everything in my arms ready to walk out the door. They said, Chef, you have a call. And I said, well, who is it? Is everything okay? And they said, we don't know, that she wants to talk to you. So I get on the phone. It was this lady from Canada, and she was on a tour. She was just traveling across the country, and she said, I heard about your dining hall, and I said, if I ever get towards Texas, I'm going to go in there and stop and have lunch or dinner. And she said, I am at the Texas-Oklahoma border, and it's about 25 minutes away. Could I come in and meet you? And I said, of course. And so I waited on her, and she was just so excited. We had the Dallas Cowboys come in and eat, and it was just people from everywhere coming in and wanting to try the food. And I would come in the morning time, and we had a little old-fashioned comment board where you could write on a card and stick it on there. And I can't tell you how many times I'd come in in the morning from the night before, and they'd say, we are from Branson, Missouri, and we're from Florida, and we heard about your kitchen, wanted to come in and try your food. So we have people coming from everywhere.
Wow. That is so cool.
And we had professors actually writing the president, not the president of the dining services, president of the school, telling them this is the reason why I got a meal card was because one day I wandered over here to see what vegan food was about, and this is so good. And so I decided to buy a meal card, and I would eat here every day, and I wouldn't change it. And so, we had that kind of stuff going on. It was very successful.
Well, all right. Well, I love this. And because number one, I didn't realize that you weren't vegan when you started this. And I love actually that mix, because that is truly like someone that is not, quote, biased, going in, to putting this all together. I love that. And that you almost, quote, if you will, were converted along the way. What did you do? So you had this task in front of you, and I know obviously you got to think about, all right, it is, quote, a change for a lot of people. And like you said, the people had their preconceived notions. What were your first thoughts of like, all right, we need to start with these types of recipes? You know, did you try and make recipes that mimicked other things that maybe were on the plate that maybe people could, quote, identify? I'm just curious how you went about, because obviously it's successful, and I have listeners I know that asked me, hey, Mike, if we're going to go somewhere, maybe even, you know, in their hometown, a civic club they're in or something, how to maybe try and, you know, introduce. So I'm curious, how did you do this? What was your kind of game plan, and how did y'all come out of the gates?
Well, you know, Mike, the thing about me is that I grew up eating a lot of vegetables. We were very poor, and we didn't have a whole lot of meat. Sometimes we just had what we had. And I remember in the summertime, you know, my mom would always put up corn and green beans and all these vegetables for the wintertime. And so we cooked. She always had beans on the table. And so I grew up eating with vegetables. And it's so funny that when you think about sometimes, and people talk about how bad vegan food is, and I'll say, well, you know, do you eat marinara sauce? Oh, yeah, I love marinara sauce. Well, you're eating pasta. That's basically vegan because there's no meat in it.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, people are actually a lot of times are eating plant-based and they don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how I decided to do this, because what happened was that, you know, because I didn't know anything about what I was doing, and I just started looking at the recipes and looking through cookbooks, going online and looking up vegan recipes. And so I'd get these recipes and I would tweak them. And then every day for 3 months, because when we closed down in May for the summer, then June, July, and August, I had that 3 months. And what I did, I would pick about 5 or 6 recipes out, and I would tweak them, and then I would call our executive team over, and they'd say, yes, we like this, or no, we don't. Can we add something here? Can we do this or that? And so really, truly, that's how this was born. And once I got into realizing and really honed in on the fact that you're just leaving the animal product out. I mean, just like, you know, vegetable lasagna. I have this recipe that it was kind of a twist to normal lasagna. It had a Alfredo sauce with it, and it had chicken, but it had broccoli and zucchini and yellow squash and so red onions and all carrots and all these good vegetables. And I said, you know what? I can just take that and I can make the Alfredo with the soy milk, and that could be, I can veganize that. And so that's what I did. A lot of the recipes that we have right now that are I did a training manual, 2-day training manual, and we have right now about 106 recipes in it. About probably 90% of those recipes are in there are actually recipes that I was doing at home. I just tweaked them and took out the animal product.
Uh-huh.
Of course, you know, we use the soy milk, we use the plant-based margarine, and it's just really that simple. I don't know, you know, how to say it any plainer or simpler than that. It's just when you look at a recipe, I mean, even now I do it. I look at these recipes and I'll go somewhere and have dinner with my husband. We were one night at this restaurant, and they have the Italian nachos. And I told my husband, I said, and all it is the wonton wrappers, and they do have the ones without eggs. And I said, you know what, I could do this at UNT. So I called my salesman up. I said, would you bring some wonton wrappers, make sure there's no eggs in them? And I said, I'm going to do nachos. And so and I just left out the chicken, and I made my own cheese sauce, and it was just that simple to do. You know, the shepherd's pie is another one. There's so many recipes that you can look at and say, you know what, I could just change the milk and leave out the chicken or the beef or pork or whatever it is, and I have a plant-based. And we call things, I like to call it plant-based because I had such a negative connotation to that vegan word. And so when I got to the Humane Society, Ken and I coined the phrase plant-based.
Yep.
And so, you know, we try to make it more palatable. We encourage people all over the United States, wherever we go, to not use the vegan. When we go into universities and hospitals, just don't use the vegan word. Just call it what it is. If it's vegetable lasagna, it's got zucchini and squash and spinach, and just call it what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's all. You just you don't have to accentuate that vegan word. And we found that it's very, very successful. And a lot of times people are eating this and they're like, this is so good. And I said, does it taste any different than if you would eat meat in it? And they said, I didn't even notice it didn't have meat in it because we put so much flavor into it.
Yep.
And, putting flavor into it is very important, especially if you're a chef. You learn to work with herbs and you learn all the flavors that you can put into that meat, into those vegetables to make it just like you would if you were cooking meat. The tofu has taken a really big hit, and I go around the country telling people, if you put flavor into that, people are not going to even notice that, and they're going to want it more. And it's just like cooking a piece of chicken. If you don't put flavor on the chicken, you're not going to want to eat that either. And so it's all about the flavor and getting people to understand that plant-based cooking is very good and very healthy.
It is so funny you say that about chicken because, as you know, I had Eddie Garza on a few weeks back, and he said the same thing. He and I were talking. He goes, look, chicken without any seasoning, it's like he and I sitting there we both go cardboard. He goes, yes.
Yeah.
Because so much of it, you're right, is the spice and the flavors. However, I really appreciate, especially for the people listening, you pointing out that, you know what, let's not be victim to what, as humans, our psyche so often does in life. We try to make everything way harder than it needs to be. And then it's like you said, keep it simple. And just like you said, take the meat out of meals. And I tell people all the time when I go to restaurants, it's a lot of times what I do. I'll go and I'll say, they'll ask me, what do you eat in a restaurant? I said, you see that nice salad right there loaded with stuff? I tell them to hold the chicken. That's it. I mean, it's a great salad. Hold the chicken. They're like, and it's funny sometimes, it's like we overthink things and like, oh, I didn't think, because they'll sit there and scan the menu and they go, there's nothing here. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, you've got 5 options. That salad right there. No, it's got chicken. Yeah, take the chicken out. And they're like, oh, it's just one of those, it's kind of, we're not wired to think that way. And I love, like you saying, keep it simple, because a lot of times when people are making this transition in their life to plant-based, that, they do think it'll be really hard to cook things and recipes and all. And I love you pointing out, especially with your background, with your knowledge and skill set of everything you've done, you could make, very extravagant, if you will, meals and all like that. And yet I love that you say, you know what, people, it doesn't have to be that way. And that you actually created everything over there at Mean Greens by keeping it simple. And I thank you so much for pointing that out, because I'm so glad everyone listening gets to hear that.
And one thing, that I tell the chefs, culinarians, cooks, wherever we go, is there's 3, if you use the 3 F words, keep it fun, make it fast, and keep it familiar. And that's exactly what we have tried to do with this recipe set that we use, is use all 3 of those F words and you just can't fail with that. And I'm a big proponent of, it doesn't matter if you're a chef in a kitchen and it's a day-to-day grind to you. You know what? If you find the fun in what you're doing, and that's exactly, Mike, I can tell you that's exactly what I have been all my life. You can ask anybody that I've ever worked with. I try to find the fun in the kitchen. I try to love people and, tell them we're going to do this today and I'm going to get in there and help you. And so, if you keep it fun, and then if people recognize that's mashed potatoes there, and, and they can see what's in that product, in that dish that you've created, then it's going to be familiar to them, and they're going to eat that stuff. And I can tell you, we go some places that, not so much do the cooks want us there, because in their minds, they're thinking, oh, they're coming in here and giving us more work. And I know that's what happened at UNT. The cooks at first thought, well, they're giving us more work. And no, it's not more work. So on that first day, they're kind of apprehensive and really thinking, and you can tell what they're thinking, we wish y'all would just go away and leave us alone. You don't need to come in here and upset our apple cart. But that second day, they come back loving us and thanking us and telling us how good the food was, how easy it is, and, that it tastes good and all of these things. And so, if people, and education, I believe, is the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome. Because if people are not educated and don't have the knowledge about what good food is about, then they are going to turn their noses up with that vegan word. But I just tell everybody, I'm just about good food. In fact, I just posted this morning, I'm going to be at the Dallas County Fair, the Texas Fair in 2 days, and I said, come out and try some good food. Because people know that that's what I'm about, is the good food. I'm not about bad food. And everything we do is with flavor, but, I encourage them, and I encourage all the participants when we start, is to keep an open mind. Yes, you're going to be working with some different things like the vegan cream cheese and the sour cream. But you know what? To me, they don't taste any different than what we use already. And but people in their minds, they have it made up in their mind, that vegan cream cheese, that can't possibly be good. And then I make the red velvet cupcakes, and I make the icing, cream cheese icing, and they're all just blown away like, well, we can't even tell this. No, you can't. So we just did a big event up in South Dakota, and all of those people, none of those people up there, but maybe one or two were vegans. And so they were talking, we laughed because we were at the table when we were serving, and this man walked up and said, where's the beef? And his wife punched him. She said, you need to be quiet. They don't have to be here tonight. And it was so funny, and he said, oh, Jesus, what am I going to do? And she said, you're going to eat what they have here. And I got loud with him, and we just kind of had to laugh and turn around because it was so funny. But then after he ate it, he came back for seconds, and he said, man, this is some of the best eggplant I've ever eaten in my whole entire life. And he said, are y'all sure this is vegan? And I said, yes, sir, it is. So, that's the kind of thing that it's just really when you taste the food and you get past that mental block that you have and you taste the food, then it really comes alive to you.
You're so right. And I love, like you said, that it's about people just being open-minded and just doing their best to, just kind of, if you will, put on the back burner any preconceived notions, stereotypes, because I tell people that's one reason, for instance, part of why I even do these podcasts and my website and all, because I at least want to just put information out there to arm people with knowledge. So, as you and I know, like you said from the get-go, people were saying, oh, it's going to taste awful. There's no way. And so at least tell people, look, just give it a shot. Give it a shot to eat it. And, and I tell people all the time, listen, we all hear, of course, the myth on the other side about there's no protein, and that's a whole other story, of course. But, I say, look, I just want to put information and knowledge out here for you to where then you can make true informed decisions moving forward. Because, I tell people, I got good friends that they're not all plant-based right now. They're shifting some of their meals. However, they started shifting once they found out, oh, wait, I'm not giving up any nutrients. I'm not giving up any protein. And, yeah, it is flavorful. I love that. And so I love, like you saying, hey, everyone's just got to be open and give it a shot. And, of course, I know, I love, like you said, the 3 Fs, because I know you've got fun going on, because if you're running around like with Ken and Eddie, I know there's got to be a whole lot of fun when y'all get together doing stuff.
You're right. It is a joy for one. But, it is so important that what you touched on just a minute. I just want to kind of refer to that. And, it's when people just relax about it. And I go around and people say to me, oh, I couldn't give up. I couldn't eat this way all the time. And I said, you know what? I said, it kind of grows on you. I said, because when I started at UNT, that was the last thing I thought about was not eating chicken or not eating meat. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this during the daytime. At nighttime, I'll go out and eat what I want to eat. And it was about 6 months into it, and I'll never forget it. And I tell this story whenever I'm doing my presentation. My husband worked at UNT also, and so he came by and he picked me up. He said, well, honey, what do you want to eat tonight? You want to get steak? You want chicken, beef? What do you want? And I said, no, and he was driving, and I'll never forget it. He was driving, and I said, no. I said, I just think I want a baked potato and salad tonight. And he stops the car right in the middle of the road, and he looks at me, and he said, are you crazy? He said, you have been eating like that all day long. You don't want any kind of meat. You're going to get sick. And I said, no, I don't. I said, I don't want any meat tonight. And so, I just began to realize that I really did miss that because I was eating good food, Mike. And when you get satisfied with other things, you don't have to have all that animal product. Mm-hmm. And, being a certified. And so I tell people, just take it easy. Start maybe one meal and don't eat any meat. And then before you know it, you're going to be just leaving it off for 2 meals. And then before you know it, it's going to be a week, and you don't even realize that you haven't eaten meat, and you don't really care about it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I encourage people. And being a certified executive pastry chef, classically trained, I was always taught to work with eggs and milk and butter and cream and all that stuff. And that was my biggest hurdle when they told me I was going to be doing this. And Ken, he always, in our presentations, he always makes fun of me with this, and he tells people when he introduces me, and he was talking about when I first started, and I looked at him and said, Ken, how am I going to make cake without eggs and butter? And he does that little southern thing, tries to mimic me. And that was one of the things, because I'm a pastry chef. Like you said, I've studied in Paris, France. I went to the Culinary Institute of American Studies. And I love pastries, and that has been the love of my life ever since I got into being a chef. So that's kind of what I honed in on. So I didn't know that you could make a good cake without eggs and butter and milk and all those things. But you know what? I just began to experiment with it and have fun with it. And I do have some good desserts. In fact, when I was at UNT, we had 4 other dining halls. And the people, even our bosses, would come around and say to me, I don't know what you're doing over here, but we need to figure out something, because all these people are asking, why can't we have desserts like mean greens, and why can't our food taste good like mean greens? And he said, we may have to have you go to the other kitchens and help them put flavor and do some desserts for us. But, and so, that's the way I've always been. I've always determined that, I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to keep up with the what's happening in our world and be the best that I can be with what we're doing.
Well, listen, all right, I got to ask you. So just kind of what we just talked about, like you said, hey, what do you do in the absence of eggs and butter? Can you give some quick tips to people listening and maybe doing something like, hey, look, I want to try and convert some stuff myself. Is there any quick tips you can get, like you said, maybe for a cake, or I don't know, I'm just saying off the top of my head, pancakes or something that maybe you say you substitute out in place of like eggs or the butter?
Well, there's a lot of tricks, and people, and again, a lot of chefs they're just set on this is the way you have to do it, and that's what they teach in culinary school. But, there is a lot of tips and a lot of things that you can do. For one thing, just like making pancakes, you can leave out, you can you can have oil in it. You don't have to have the butter. If you do, just use Earth Balance or Smart Balance, one of the good ones. And then leave the egg out and I like to use self-rising flour because it's kind of foolproof. There are recipes out there that you can put the baking powder in, and I can tell you how to do that. But I think the really foolproof way to do the pancakes is to use self-rising flour. And, I use just a little bit of oil and a little bit of sugar and some vanilla and the milk, and I mix that all together and then put in my flour and, make a pancake batter. It's just that simple. Just leave the eggs. Sometimes you don't even need eggs and things. To make a cake is the same thing. A lot of times that I would use the self-rising flour to make cakes and muffins. I have plenty of recipes. If you wanted to give out my email address to your people and on the podcast, and they can email me. I'm glad to send over recipes. But basically, the thing about making cakes is that if you realize what your ingredients do, and this is one thing when I was teaching, Mike, that I honed in to all of my students, is that you need to know what your ingredients do. And, look up on the internet, what is the purpose of the egg? And basically it helps leaven it. The baking powder will do that. It helps moisturize it. Flaxseed can replace the egg. Applesauce can replace the eggs. There's lots of egg replacers out there. And so if you understand what the important ingredients like the eggs and the sugar, what they do, then you can actually create something all your own. And, the best thing that I could tell somebody, the best advice, and this is what I had to do, I actually just took the recipe and I tested it for myself. There's a lot of recipes out there that work, and there's a lot of them that don't. And so you find a recipe, go on, if say you want to do a chocolate cake, go on online and say vegan chocolate cake, it'll pull up a lot of recipes for you. And you're going to realize that what the leavening is on those is going to be is vinegar, and baking soda. And if they're using baking powder, then they'll use the baking powder with the vinegar, not soda, and so on and so forth. But, the thing is that I tested a lot of recipes before I ever found one, and then I did the tweaking myself. I would test them, and I would say, well, this is a little bit dry, so I need to do this, this, and this. And that's how, because I'm a chef, it was easy for me to be able to figure that out. When I did zucchini bread, we did it out at UNT, and it was always good. Well, whenever I took the recipe and I cut it back, and I don't really know what happened, but it got into the recipe book wrong. And the first time we ever made it, I told Ken, I said, that recipe is not correct. So I had a few days at home, and I took that recipe and I deconstructed that whole thing, and now we have a really good zucchini bread. And so, you just, and I knew it was too much sugar in it, and I knew it was too much oil because I could tell by the way it baked up. And so, really and truly knowing what your ingredients do, what they're in there for, what the sugar is about, why do you have oil, and if you understand that, really and truly, you can make it work. And like I said, test the recipe, and if it doesn't work, then there's several recipes out there for all chocolate chip cookies, everything imaginable. You can find a recipe on the internet now and just type in the word vegan. But the thing is that you need to, I've always been the type of person that I've always tested the recipe before I would put it out there. So
I tell you, listening to you, as much as you go over this, I imagine you in the kitchen, you are like the plant-based mad scientist chef. Just keep on tweaking stuff and tweaking it, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, until it comes out to where everyone's just like, yum. That is so cool.
I was trying to get a pumpkin dessert recipe ready for next week. I'll be going up to SUNY New Paltz in New York, and I was trying to, it's their Hudson Valley Harvest, and he wanted me to do some desserts for him, and I was trying to get this pumpkin pie dessert to work, and it didn't work. And I did it about 3 times, and I threw it away. And my uncle was at my house, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "This stuff doesn't taste good. I'm not putting that out there." I said, "I'm going to work it till I get this fixed." And he just laughed at me. He said, "You've done it 3 times." And I said, "I'll do it 3 more too until I get it." So yeah, I have fun with it. I mean, I hate throwing stuff away, and I try to make just a little bit of it and try it and see if it's going to work before I actually waste a whole lot of stuff. But yeah, I am the mad scientist. That's probably true for me.
Well, nice. Well, let me ask you something too, and I don't know if these are something, because with you obviously focusing right now more, like you said, with the college and like that, do you have any suggestions or whatever for people with children, families with children? I've been getting asked that more and more, people emailing me just saying, "Mike, I've got children, kind of how do I, quote, meet them where they're at?" Maybe some good recipes or things you see, maybe that's been successful for other people by chance?
Well, children are, they're just so inquisitive, and they are, children nowadays are smart, Mike. I can tell you we laugh about this when I get into groups and we talk, but whenever I was growing up, I didn't ask any questions. We had what we had, and my mama put it on the table, and we ate it, and that was just it. And now kids, I mean, even I found out at UNT when I did this all vegan dining hall, kids would come in and say, "Is this corn GMO free?" And the first time that child asked me that, I was like, "What in the world? I don't even know what that means." I didn't tell him that. Yeah. I don't know. I'll go find out. So I went and looked it up on the internet, and and they're coming in asking about the sugar and all of these and how this food is processed, and it's just so amazing. But I believe, and this is what I've done with my own children and my grandchildren. They know that I cook plant-based, and I do some at home, and they'll ask me, "Is this vegan?" Like the other day, I made that pumpkin cobbler, and my granddaughter, they love pumpkin, and so I called her over and I said, "Come over, I want you to taste this." And she tasted it. She said, Nanny, this is so good. She said, is it vegan? And I said, yes, ma'am, it is. And she said, you can't even tell it. You make things good, and you keep it familiar with kids. Like, if they like mashed potatoes, I have this recipe that is called Cold Canyon, and I got it whenever I was in France. And you cook the cabbage and you cook the potatoes, and you blend that all together, and it just has such a good flavor to it.
Oh.
And so my granddaughter loves cabbage and potatoes. And so the other day I made that, and I said, I want you to try something. And she said, what is it? I said, it's just potatoes. Just try it. And so she tried it, and she said, Nanny, that tastes good. She said, what is it? And I said, I mixed the cabbage in with it, and I told her, and she said, that is really good. So, you can keep things familiar, and that's what I really, really tell people with little children is those tofu fingers. I've fried those for my grandkids, and they eat that, and they're like, these are good. What is it? And I said, it's tofu fried. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it takes the place of the chicken, and they're very surprised. So, do things like the tofu fingers and cook things that are very familiar to them, and then, start adding a few things in there, and before you know it, they're going to be eating and not even asking questions.
Gotcha. Thank you. Well, let's get in a little bit then. I know, obviously, as we said in the beginning, and like you said, kind of your story. First, you were there, at the University of North Texas, and then from there is where you came on board with the Humane Society of the U.S. And so, if you would, tell me a little bit about, I know, like we said, you've been training a lot of chefs, you travel doing that. What are maybe some big goals you've got for the upcoming year with what you're doing, and maybe some big projects you're working on?
Well, one project that we're working on is doing more with the hospitals, and we have got a lady that she's a registered nurse, and she's working with Ken to put recipes together. Even now, we're working with a medical entity, and we're working with them trying to get the recipes to match up with what their criteria is for a healthy meal, and with so many calories and so much sodium and protein and all those things that apply to healthy eating. And so my main thing, I think, for next year is to get this program going, because more and more we're getting hospitals calling us and wanting us to come and work with them. And so we really do need to finish up and get this training manual, if you will, with recipes that they can work with. Also, we've got 2 new chefs that are on board, and I'm going to be working with them, and basically, I want this program to shine, not just for me because of me, but for the Humane Society, and also for what it means to what we're doing. There's 3 reasons, Mike, why, and we think there's 3 reasons. It's more, but the main reasons why people go the route of becoming vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, whatever you want to call that. And one of the reasons could be for their health. And I know for me personally, it has actually helped me. I'm a diabetic. My A1C has always been high. I've started eating healthier and eating more plant-based, and the numbers are going down. And the doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. So it has been a very, very big witness to me that this does work. And also for the cruelty of the animals. If we really look at the cruelty in all of these chickens and pigs and the way they're handled, it's horrible. And then the next thing would be our planet. We all talk about how our planet is in a mess, and they're looking at 20 and 50 years. How are we going to feed all these people if we continue down the road that we're going? So no matter what the reason for you changing your habit, your daily routine, it's a win-win for us all. And so what I want to do with this program next year, I want to make sure that I think we just scratched the surface. We've been doing it. In January, it'll be 3 years that Ken and I started. We started at Harvard. And, we have a lot of work to do. And we just really scratched the surface in being able to relate to people and make people see that what we're doing is worthy their time to have us come there. We've been into Canada now, and I got to go to Hawaii and work with the people there, and we just had so much success with it. But I think that there's a lot more that we can and need to do, and so my goal is to make sure that we even make it bigger than we have in the past 2 years.
Well, I love it. And that is awesome. I love, like you said, especially the headway into the hospitals. Love that, because I think that's one of those, as you and I know, can then, if you will, morph into other departments in the hospitals. That once they see the benefits, in the cafeteria and all like that, I think it'll get more people in the hospitals open to, and hopefully prescribing, if you will, foods to people more, and as prescribing foods to prevent. Instead of a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of medicine, is still kind of in the treatment phase where it's treatment with drugs instead of let's try and head it off at the past. So I love the inroads that you're making there. And, it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of like, they always have that old saying about, the way to get to someone is through their stomach. But there's a lot of truth to that. And so I love that y'all are spreading this. And like you said, a lot of people come, I've said it all the time, and the way I look at it, and I agree with you 100%, that, there's different reasons why people may go to, a plant-based life. And it's one of the best things. A lot of times in life, we all want to know, what's the return? We hear financial and all like that. What's the return? What's the return of my time or something? And I love the fact you do one change, and that is shifting to plant-based, and yet you make 3 returns. It's not a 1-to-1. Just like you just mentioned, it is a 3-to-1 return, even if that was not someone's intention, which is great. It's like, look, I know your intention may have been for your health, kind of like mine was starting out in life. However, you also benefit, like you said, the environment, and you benefit the animals. So it's phenomenal to me how it all comes into place.
You're right. And, one thing I forgot to mention, one very important, I believe probably is as important as the hospitals, is we actually are getting into the military. I was there just about a month ago. We went down to down in Jacksonville at Mayport Naval Air Station, and we worked with those guys down there for 3 days. And I'm telling you, it is so important that, they have healthy meals and are ready to be alert and available for what is happening in our world today. And it was just such a joy to be able to go. We've been to Fort Gordon, and we went to the one my mind just slipped, but we've been to 3 so far, and we're working towards that to make that even a bigger part of next year. We've got some big things coming up that hopefully we're going to be able to push in and get more involved with the military, and that's another important entity that we're really pushing for.
That is awesome. Why? Well, I know you said earlier you're fine with me giving out your email, so I'm going to make sure in the show notes and on the blog post I have that out there for people. Any places, like, for instance, that we talked, like, even on Humane Society main site or anything that maybe you would point people to that want to get information, that maybe want to open up to, like I said, their own little civic group or something that just kind of helps give them, if you will, a roadmap? Anywhere they can kind of find that, or is it just easier to email you?
Well, they can email me, but you can go on the humanesociety.org, and there's all kinds of information that lets them know what things that we offer, trainings that we do. We have a K through 12 training. We have dietitians training. We have what we call the forward food, where we get, if you will, what we call the decision makers together, and they come together for a one-day conference. We have lunch and have a demo for them and have a panel of experts talking about, different aspects of why you want to become plant-based, talking about just the different areas. And so it's a very interesting one-day training that we do. So, yes, the humanesociety.org has all that information. They can actually email me. And if do you want me to tell you what it is, or you already have that, I'm sure?
Oh, yeah, you can tell it that right now, right? Because that way it'll be live here. If you want to go ahead and say it, yeah. Okay.
It's wwhite@humanesociety.org.
Okay. And again, for everybody listening, I'm going to put that in the show notes. And Well, thank you so much. This has been informative and awesome having you on. I really appreciate it, and definitely will be following up with you to see kind of how these goals and how it continues to move along with, like you said, opening up like these hospitals, even the military. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, hey, Mike, you know what? This is such a joy to me, and I'm telling you, I wouldn't want to do anything else. I have been so blessed by all that the Humane Society has afforded me to be able to do, and Ken has just been the biggest advocate of mine. I tell people all the time, he actually pushed me and made me see what I didn't realize I had what I had in me to do this, but he's been a great mentor, and it has been a really great 3 years.
Well, that is awesome. Well, I look forward, like I said, to staying in touch and hearing what the mad scientist chef has going on in the kitchen here soon. And, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much, Ms. Chef Wanda.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Chef Wanda, thank you so much again for coming on. Awesome talking with you. And, and everyone, let's remember what she said, because I love one of your quotes where you said, you got to have the 3 F words: fun, fast, and familiar. And, like you said, that's what you say to your chefs when you're training them. And you know what? And I think that's just a great mantra for all of us, to kind of go through here. And as we're, telling others about plant-based vegan, incorporating it and getting information, keep it fun, fast, and familiar. Because a lot of people, trying to figure out ways, hey, how can I incorporate this into my life? How can it be, quote, fast? Because we're always, all of us in a rush. We're rushing everywhere, and we're trying to find ideas and how we can make this happen. So thank you so much for the knowledge you share, because a lot of knowledge you share does make that fun, fast, and familiar for all of us. Love the story again of you and Mean Greens and the conversion of that dining hall. And I think it's so cool in actuality that's where your story of transition, to plant-based begins, is at the dining hall, and that you were not, plant-based when that started. Because to me, I like that aspect of this story, because, a lot of times you might expect in life where, hey, they're going to, convert a dining hall, convert a restaurant, whatever, and send in, quote, the plant-based vegan SWAT team, to go in there. And in this place, it was like, look, they took someone with a tremendous amount of talent. However, that wasn't your, quote, area of expertise. And they said, and it caused you to kind of do a lot of research and find the way. And along the way, you actually converted yourself. And I think that's very cool the way all that worked out. And I just, I love, again, hearing that story. I know Ken Botts had shared some of it, and to hear you talking more and even more in depth about Mean Greens and what that meant to you and just the results you saw there, I love it. And I love the fact that it's such a springboard to other things, to other dining halls. And like you were talking about the hospitals, I mean, getting into hospitals now, phenomenal. I mean, if we continue to get into hospitals and make, plant-based, part of the, prescribed, prevention, okay, if we can get that habit going in the medical field, I truly believe so many things can be prevented. We can, greatly cut back a lot of these illnesses that people go through and have to suffer from. So I love seeing, that headway, what's going on. I love the initiative that you're involved with, and I got to give kudos to the Humane Society of the U.S. for these initiatives of training the chefs, because, the idea behind that I love is that, you go out and you train all these chefs, get them comfortable with and arm them with the knowledge of how to do plant-based, then they can go in turn and start implementing it, and it spreads that way. And so, I love it. I love you telling the stories about kind of how the first day or so goes, and what, their initial preconceived notions are when you walk in a place, but then how it, quickly turns when people say, hey, I do like this. I get to use my skills and my talents, and actually this isn't hard. And, I get to be creative. So I love that. Thank you so much, Chef Wanda, for sharing that. Thank you so much again for coming on. Thank all of you for listening. Really appreciate it. Go to iTunes, if that's your choice there, don't forget to subscribe, leave some feedback there. Go to Stitcher, Google Play. Always love to hear from everybody. Remember, vegantourguide@gmail.com. Email me direct there. Go check out the facebook.com Vegan Tour Guide page. If you haven't already, please like it and follow it. Just again, if you would, just forward this on to friends and others. Repost to your social media. Because again, that is my goal, my intention, is to spread this knowledge and information, to get it out there, just so people know that it can be done. That's the thing. You all know me, and you know the way I like to, present this and talk. I don't shout down, if you will, if someone doesn't immediately go plant-based or anything like that. I just want to put the information out there. Maybe they're changing one meal a week. You know what? Fantastic. That's a victory. I think it's just going to people's health. So that's why I want to make sure we're all spreading this information out there. So again, vegantourguide.com for the past episodes, some blogs, recipes, everything else. Always want to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, everybody, live Pura Vida.